Thanks so much for having me. Happy to go now. Kia ora, everyone. My name is Emily Levenson, and I'm an environmental policy advisor at Horticulture New Zealand. We are the industry body that represents commercial fruit and vegetable growers in New Zealand. So we're levy funded. Every sale of fruits and vegetables goes towards our budget, and then we are advocates on behalf of those growers to government. Our growers are an incredibly diverse bunch, growing over 100 types of fruits and vegetables, and we represent all of them. So the first thing that I was asked to talk about today was a success story for the circular economy in the fruit and vegetable sector. And one of the parts of our sector that came to mind was the glasshouse industry. So you might know that lots of your vegetables are grown in glasshouses, and these glasshouses are heated in the winter so that you can access tomatoes all year round if you want to eat them all year round. This is an example of one particular massive glasshouse site, but in the middle what you see is the Reparoa organic waste processing plant. So this is where Auckland has curbside collection of their food scraps. Those food scraps are trucked 260 kilometers to Reparoa, where they go in these big anaerobic digesters. And one of the byproducts of this process is in biogas that's used to heat the glasshouses and grow lots of delicious tomatoes, mostly for the domestic market. What I think is the most interesting part of this facility is that a lot of glasshouse growers heat using natural gas, and one of the barriers for them of moving to other energy sources is that they capture CO2 from that natural gas and pump it into the glasshouses to improve plant yields. So without another source of CO2, it's really hard to economically justify moving to a different energy source. With this facility, they can capture the CO2 from the anaerobic digestion process, put it into the glasshouses. Amazing, beautiful, lots of tomatoes for New Zealanders. The thing that I look at when I see this is that this is great, but this is not very replicable, right? Like, this is one glasshouse business. Every glasshouse in New Zealand is not going to be able to co-locate with massive anaerobic digesters that are processing lots of food scraps from Auckland. So it's great if you've got lots of money, infrastructure investment, other uses for this facility, but this was not funded by growers on their own. So that's the bit that I want to talk about in this short talk, is that access to capital. And in order to understand the economic constraints on the vegetable industry in New Zealand, you have to understand some of those domestic economic dynamics. So this chart that I've made here, all of these lines represent monetary flows throughout our supply chain. So bigger line is more money of product and smaller line is less, and I just use money because that's the data that's available. But the most important thing to notice about this chart is that most of the vegetables consumed by New Zealand households are grown in New Zealand. And almost all of the vegetables grown in New Zealand are going to New Zealand households. That means that growers are operating within the domestic market, and so they're constrained by what's happening in that market. So what makes up the price of a vegetable? When you go to the supermarket and you buy a broccoli, why does it cost the amount that it does? Well, supermarkets price at the amount that consumers are willing to pay based on supply and demand. Within that price, growers have a lot of inputs that they have to pay for. So that's fertilizer, transportation, labor, compliance, sprays, packaging, et cetera. These costs have been going up a lot over time, which that presentation we just had about diesel is a great example of why some of those costs are going up very quickly. At the other end, we've got a supermarket duopoly, only really two major buyers for fresh vegetables. They take a markup, they take a profit off of that product, and most growers sell through wholesalers who take a markup as well. So whatever's left there, that is what the grower earns. And in recent years in particular, this has been getting smaller and smaller, with many vegetable growers even having to sell below the cost of production. I've heard from many growers telling me this is happening to them, and there are many growers thinking about exiting the market because they are not able to make a profit off of growing healthy, nutritious, delicious food for New Zealanders. So when it comes to waste, the cost of managing food loss has to fit within that dynamic. Right now, a lot of vegetable growers pay to truck their product that doesn't meet market specifications for animal feed. So if they could just have a cost-neutral option, amazing. They would definitely want to look into that. If you could get them an option that could add value, that could put some financial sustainability into their businesses, help them keep operating, that would be amazing. The thing is that in order to develop those products, you need some maybe capital for processing. You need a market of people who are willing to buy those products. So there are constraints there as well. And so I think it's really worth noticing that when you look at the value add products that currently exist in the horticulture sector, almost all of them come from the fruit sector. And that's what Jacob was telling us about, that a lot of fruit is for export. There's money in the industry to invest in things like in the middle, that's a vegan leather alternative being developed from kiwi fruit residues by Scion. How cool. But in order to, they say that you can't be green if you're in the red. You need some money in order to participate in sustainability. And so that brings me to some of my research questions for all of you. Is I really wonder, currently we import a lot of fruit and vegetable processed products. Are there opportunities for domestic sourcing instead? Take, for example, onion powder, which we import almost all of it from India. What if we could produce that from the material that we have here in New Zealand? But what would it take for that to be commercially viable? But also, are New Zealand consumers even willing to pay for New Zealand produced products? Because they'll usually cost more than the imported option. And so if anyone can answer that question and how we can, build consumer appetite for paying more for New Zealand produced products, that would be of huge value to our industry. So I'll just leave that there. Happy to answer any questions.